Hold up. Are we witnessing a 13-year-old just casually snatch the wigs off the entire fashion industry? At New York Fashion Week, because apparently, while most middle schoolers are worried about algebra and TikTok trends, Mariah Rogers, daughter of reality TV star MelodyShari, was too busy making history, and let's just say, the adults are shaking in their designer boots. Now, wait before you roll your eyes and say, ugh. Another influencer kid? Let me stop you right there. This wasn't just another celebrity Nepo baby moment. Oh no. This was a power move, a revenge arc, and a legacy flex all rolled into one glittering runway. Because while Melody's ex, Martell Holt, was out here playing peekaboo with his PR scandals and side chicks, Melody and her daughter were plotting a fashion takeover so clean, so savage. It left half of Huntsville and all of Instagram speechless. And the real kicker. Sources, and by sources, I mean the internet detectives with Wi-Fi and receipts, say this wasn't luck. It was strategy. Generational strategy. So grab your popcorn, your tea, and maybe a 7th Avenue body butter, because this story, oh baby, it's silky, scandalous, and screaming legacy. Let's rewind for a second, because you can't fully grasp the level of chaos, shade, and silent plotting that led to this New York Fashion Week crowning moment unless you understand the backstory. MelodyShari wasn't always the calm, glowing queen we see today, handing her daughter the keys to a legacy empire. Nope. There was a time when her life was a full-blown public soap opera, broadcast for millions, complete with cheating scandals, loud side chicks, an emotional wreckage that would have sent most people into permanent hiding. Remember the days of Love and Marriage Huntsville, when every other episode ended with someone storming out, crying, or revealing another betrayal? Yeah, that's where this story began. Not on a glamorous runway, but in a reality TV battlefield where reputations were torn apart like discount wigs. Melody was married to Martell Holt, a man who somehow turned being messy into a full-time job. The drama was endless, from secret relationships to public humiliation. And everyone watching thought, this woman's done. She's finished. Another reality star eaten alive by her own storyline. But that's where everyone underestimated her, because while the cameras were catching her tears, Melody was making plans. She was taking notes, studying the game, figuring out how to turn pain into PR, heartbreak into hustle. And while Martell was out here thinking he was the main character, Melody was busy drafting an entire sequel without him. Fast forward a few years, and she's built her own beauty empire. 7th Avenue, a brand so polished you'd never guess it was born from chaos. The same woman who once had to fight for her dignity on national TV now had her products being used on professional models at Fashion Week. Talk about a plot twist. And right beside her, watching every move, was her daughter Mariah Rogers, soaking it all in. Learning not just how to survive a storm, but how to dance in the rain with a designer umbrella. This mother-daughter duo wasn't just rebuilding their name. They were quietly rewriting the script that the world tried to write for them. So when Mariah showed up at New York Fashion Week, not as a guest, not as a pretty face, but as a featured designer, people's jaws hit the floor. 13 years old and already commanding a runway that veteran designers dream about. Let that sink in. This wasn't a kids' fashion show at the mall. This was New York Fashion Week, the holy temple of couture, where even the most connected influencers can't just stroll in without serious credentials. And yet, there was Mariah, her name on the official lineup. Her line displayed with confidence, attitude, and just the right dose of teenage genius. The tennis-inspired collection wasn't just cute, it was sharp, structured, and unapologetically modern. People in the crowd who didn't even know her story were whispering, "Who is this kid? And how did she get here?" That's when the real investigation began. Not by the press, but by the internet detectives who live for this kind of Cinderella meets savage comeback story. Fans started connecting dots, remembering old episodes, old interviews, old shade. They realized this wasn't an overnight miracle. Melody had been laying this groundwork for years. Every brand deal, every live stream, every motivational quote, Every quiet moment when she refused to clap back online, it all added up to this. The woman who once looked broken on reality TV had just created a dynasty in real time. And you better believe people noticed. Social media lit up like Times Square at midnight. There were fans cheering, haters seething, and bloggers racing to post exclusive sources claiming they knew this was coming. Some even started speculating that certain people in Melody's past weren't too happy about the Espate Rogers women stealing the spotlight again. And let's be real, we all know who they're talking about. Because for every moment of Melody's triumph, there always seems to be a conveniently timed bit of noise from her ex. It's almost like clockwork. But this time was different. This time the applause was too loud, the runway too bright, and the victory too sweet to be overshadowed. The internet didn't just see a fashion debut, they saw a redemption arc in high definition. Mother and daughter walking straight out of the ashes of reality TV and into the world stage, dressed in legacy. And the irony, while others were busy trying to trend for scandal, Melody and Mariah trended for success. Now that's how you shift the narrative. What nobody expected was how quickly the story would start, spiraling once the fashion world realized what had just happened, because within hours of Mariah's runway debut, whispers started spreading through backstage corridors like perfume in the air, and suddenly everyone had a theory about how a 13-year-old from Alabama managed to secure one of the most coveted spots at New York Fashion Week without a Hollywood agent or a billionaire sponsor pulling strings behind the curtain. The whispers turned into blog posts, and the blog posts turned into threads. And before long, it felt like the internet had turned into a full-blown investigation room, complete with anonymous sources and fakes, insiders claiming they had seen secret emails proving the Rogers family had been plotting this takeover for months. Some claimed Melody had a secret investor. Others said she used connections from her beauty brand to grease the wheels. And one especially creative. Rumors suggested that an unnamed designer dropped out last minute after seeing Mariah's samples because they were too good to compete with. No one could prove any of it, but that didn't stop the flood of speculation. Every new comment section became a crime scene, with fans dissecting every frame of every video clip, analyzing Melody's expressions, her outfit, her choice of words, even the way she hugged her daughter after the show. Some said the hug was pure pride. Others said it looked like victory mixed with vindication. Either way, the internet decided there had to be more beneath the surface. Then came the fake leaks, screenshots of emails that probably never existed, messages supposedly from insiders claiming that the Rogers team had clashed with other designers backstage over timing and space on the runway. According to one of those phantom insiders, Melody allegedly insisted that Mariah's line open the segment because it fit the energy of the show better, and that caused tension among other designers who felt overshadowed. Again, not a single piece of evidence surfaced, but the drama was too juicy for people to let go. Fashion gossip pages ran wild with it. Hashtags started trending. And suddenly everyone from reality TV fans to professional stylists had an opinion. Some defended Melody as a master strategist who outworked everyone else, while others painted her as a puppet master pulling strings in a world that wasn't ready to give a teenager that kind of spotlight. Meanwhile, Melody herself stayed silent, which only added to the suspense. She posted nothing but a single photo of Mariah, smiling backstage with a caption, "Proud beyond words." That quiet confidence drove the internet even crazier, because silence is gasoline in the world of speculation. People started claiming she was about to announce a partnership deal, or that major fashion houses were reaching out, or that this was all part of a bigger plan to launch Mariah's global line. Then, as if the universe wanted to feed the storyline, Martell suddenly reappeared online, posting vague quotes about family and loyalty and truth always comes to light. Of course, that sent the gossip machine into overdrive. Every blog from Hollywood to Huntsville framed it as a shady response to Melody's Fashion Week victory. People began digging through his old interviews, rewatching clips, trying to find hidden meanings. One YouTuber even claimed they had access to court filings that showed tension brewing behind the scenes, though no such documents were ever produced. Still, the illusion of scandal was too entertaining for the audience to resist. Commenters declared themselves detectives, analyzing timestamps and screenshots like they were investigating a high-profile case. And through all of this chaos, one thing became clear. Melody and Mariah had accidentally become the center of the internet's favorite kind of storm. The glamorous kind that mixes ambition, betrayal, redemption, and mystery. Every time someone tried to discredit their success, the fashion industry clapped back with photos, videos, and interviews praising Mariah's professionalism and Melody's composure. Editors who were actually there contradicted the rumors, calling the show refreshingly confident and impressively executed. But by then, the narrative had already taken a life of its own. The fake insiders doubled down, claiming that a luxury sponsor had pulled out due to creative conflicts with the Rogers brand, while others hinted that Melody's beauty products were suddenly under review by unnamed officials for safety compliance. None of it stuck. Yet it fueled the clicks, the reactions, the algorithmic goldmine of outrage. Viewers didn't really care what was true anymore. They wanted the thrill of watching a supposed empire rise and fall in real time. And through it all, Melody kept doing what she does best, letting the noise build while she focused on results. The next day, her brand's online sales spiked. Her follower count jumped, and major publications started requesting interviews. The same gossip that was meant to undermine her ended up amplifying her reach, proving once again that controversy can be currency when handled correctly. But even as her fans celebrated, there was still a growing sense of tension. The feeling that this was just the calm before another explosion of headlines waiting to happen. Because in Melody's world, success never comes without someone trying to twist the story. And everyone was holding their breath to see what would surface next, as the days rolled on and the runway lights dimmed. The aftermath of the Rogers takeover became its own phenomenon, a digital wildfire that refused to die out even after the last fashion blogger had moved on to the next scandal. For Melody, it was both exhilarating and exhausting to watch the narrative spiral into something bigger than she could control. Every podcast host, gossip site, and TikTok analyst wanted to decode her strategy. They called it everything from a revenge renaissance to a masterclass in image control, with some claiming she had orchestrated the perfect redemption story and others insisting she had just been lucky enough to have the internet fall in love with her daughter. But behind the glamour and speculation, Melody kept her focus razor sharp. She knew that legacy wasn't built in a single event. It was cemented in how you handled the fallout. And sure enough, the fake controversies that once threatened to swallow her image started turning into free promotion. Suddenly, 7th Avenue Beauty wasn't just a small brand. It was a conversation piece. Reporters were writing about how her products were used backstage, how she balanced motherhood with entrepreneurship, how she managed to transform her family's reputation in the age of viral chaos. Her silence, once criticized, became her superpower because in a culture addicted to overexposure, restraint looked royal. Meanwhile, Mariah was soaking it all in. Not as a child overwhelmed by fame, but as a young designer watching the world take her seriously. Her social media followers tripled overnight. Major fashion accounts reshared her designs. And schools back in Huntsville started bragging that one of their own had conquered. New York, the same classmates who once whispered behind her back were now posting stories cheering her name. And through it all, Melody watched with quiet pride, the kind that doesn't need to shout because the work speaks for itself. Still, not everyone was ready to let her win in peace. The more Melody stayed poised, the more certain voices tried to stir new drama, releasing so-called reports about brand partnerships falling through, or claiming that other designers were secretly offended by the attention Mariah received. It was the usual background noise of success, the price of being visible and unbothered. But Melody had learned to weaponize that noise. She started redirecting the energy into her next moves, hinting at new projects, teasing behind-the-scenes footage, letting curiosity do the marketing for her. The louder the speculation grew, the more graceful her responses became. Until it was obvious she had mastered the art of turning controversy into control. The fashion world noticed. Invitations poured in for panels, collaborations, and interviews. Editors began describing her not just as a reality star, but as a legitimate businesswoman with a brand story worth studying. And through all of this, Mariah became the symbol of what real legacy looks like. A living example that you can rise above chaos if someone before you builds the foundation strong enough. The same people who once doubted Melody were now calling her a visionary. She didn't need to prove anyone wrong anymore because every achievement was doing that for her. And in a poetic twist, even Martell's sporadic online posts lost traction as audiences grew tired of recycled drama. The spotlight had officially shifted. By the time the next season of Fashion Week rolled around, Melody and Mariah weren't just participants. They were the conversation. Their names had moved beyond gossip and into the language of influence, whispered in boardrooms and beauty conventions alike. The same internet that once mocked their downfall was now chronicling their rise like a documentary in progress. And maybe that's the quiet lesson buried beneath the glitz and gossip. When you refuse to let the world feign you by your pain, you end up defining the world by your power. Melody knew it. Mariah embodied it. And together, they had proven that legacy isn't about who hurt you. It's about who you become after you heal. Now the question is, what do you think this really means? Is it just a lucky break for a mother and daughter who happened to catch a wave of social media attention? Or are we watching the birth of a new blueprint for turning pain into power? Because the truth is, stories like Melody and Mariah's don't just happen by accident. They happen when someone refuses to settle for survival and starts building something that lasts long after the cameras stop rolling. Maybe that is what every parent dreams of. That one day their child will walk into a room that once rejected them and own it completely. But what about you? What legacy are you building while the world is busy watching everyone else's? Are you still clapping for drama, or are you planning your own runway moment? Think about that while you scroll. And if you want to keep uncovering the stories the headlines gloss over, hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments. And make sure you subscribe, because the next story might just change how you see fame, failure, and family forever. Stay tuned, because the truth never stays quiet for long.